Buddha Vipati Saham Pati Patanjali Manadivaram Maya Chata Santida Sata Parajata Tika Desetu Dhamam Anukam Himam Pajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang gunuttarang upajayang namasami. Atta samma panidhichaye tang mangalamuttamanti. Hope you all had a good lunch. Had a little bit of time to relax. Yeah. Very generous offering. So here's another chance for us to come together and reflect again on the Dhamma, the way things are, the truth as it manifests and unfolds moment by moment. It's a choiceless awareness that we try and engage in that we don't try and choose the present moment, we don't try and define the present moment, we don't try and sculpt the present moment, because all of these things, choosing, defining, sculpting, all of these things stem from what we like, what we don't like, stems from our preferences, our dislikes, and all this again stems from conditioning. So I thought we'll kind of begin the Dhamma talk with a um, koan or a question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Now, someone very facetious would come along and say, neither, it was the rooster. But things as they are, the question is, do we meditate to be happy, or do we need to be happy in order to meditate? Right? It's a question. It's a pertinent question. And it's a question that might, if considered, point the way to how we should engage in this pursuit of meditation, this pursuit of mental cultivation, this pursuit of mental clarity, physical ease, physical comfort, spiritual maturation, you know, and everything else that it entails. Um, so, do we meditate to be happy, or do we need to be happy in order to meditate? Now, Niraso, if you ask Niraso, he would say, um, do we play golf to relax, or do we need to be relaxed to play golf? One, kind of the same thing. But I was listening to Mingyul Rinpoche probably 3-4 years ago, and one thing he said really touched me, and one thing he said really made sense. So, as we know, the most the first and the most important teaching of the Buddha is the Four Noble Truths, of which the first noble truth is that there is suffering. And Mingyul Rinpoche actually said, you need a happy mind to actually see that your mind is suffering. It's very true, because we're always caught up in our vortices of, dislike and ill will and suffering, and we really can't step back and take a look. Lumpur Cha used to say, if you want to see the palm of your hand, it should be at a comfortable distance of viewing. If it's like this, you can't see anything. You got to hold it like this. So if we actually have to look at suffering and look at the cause of suffering, try and let go of suffering and apply the path that leads to the end of suffering, suffering needs to be objectified. So that's one um, one kind of thought process. Now, coming back to what we were talking about this morning, this idea of sarana, this idea of sikkhapada, and this idea of sati. So, refuge, precepts, and mindfulness. What about those three in this kind of context, right? As what happens when we are actually fully engaged or fully committed to these ideas of refuge, training precepts, and mindfulness? Then immediately what happens is we live a life that's blameless, blameless to ourselves, blameless to those around us. And this engenders a kind of happiness, right? The Buddha called this anavajja sukha, the happiness of blamelessness. You can't, you know, there's no guilt. There's a supreme kind of confidence that, yeah, I've done something right. And what I've done benefits me and benefits others. And this is the guiding force of my life. Lovely. So it engenders this joy or happiness that is born out of blameless living, blameless thinking, blameless behavior. From another vantage point, when we deal with refuge or when we live our lives having a refuge and we live our lives guided by the training precepts and we live our lives with remembrance, with mindfulness, we somehow we are encouraged to engage in certain activities and disengage from other kinds of activities. And that is exactly engaging with the wholesome, engaging with the skillful, disengaging from the unwholesome, disengaging from the unskillful. So when this happens, the kind of happiness that's born out of that is what the Buddha called nekkhamma sukha, right? The happiness that's born out of non-doing. If you want to be really kind of nekkhamma, non-sensuality, you know, anything, because this kind of joy that is born out of a, I mean, we all know what sensual joy is, right? We experience sensual joy all the time. Have you have ice cream or cake, or we have a really nice, relaxing time in a very soft bed, or that's nikamas. That is sensual joy, sensual pleasure. Nothing wrong in that. But then it is unreliable. It is fleeting. It is conditional. If my mattress wasn't as soft, I'm not going to have the same amount of pleasure. The other thing with pleasure is that it has a diminishing effect. So the first slice of cake is really nice. The second slice is nice. The third slice is tolerable. The fourth slice you want to throw out of the window. But then the joy that comes out of, say, okay, I really shouldn't be doing this. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to watch what happens when I don't do it. Not, it's not an act of willfulness. It's not an act of vehemence. It's not an act of force. We're saying, okay, I know this isn't really beneficial. I'm just going to step back and not engage. And I'm going to see what happens. It's a gentle attitude. So instead of aggressively stepping forward and trying to kick it away, we just take a step back and say, what's going to happen now? The joy that's born out of that is lasting. It's way more meaningful. It's lasting because it's way more meaningful. And sometimes it can be surprising. Wow, I didn't do that. This is my habit, right? And I always engage in this. I didn't do that. And now I feel pretty good, right? So it becomes it builds up confidence. So anavajja sukha, nekama sukha. The other sukha that's kind of related to this is the happiness that comes of letting go. These are my usual habit patterns. This is what I always do. So uh, let's say I'm diagnosed with diabetes, and I always like ending my meal with a sweet. And then Michelle comes to me and says, "Bante, no more sweets." My default is to have a sweet. So I feel cheated, right? I feel, oh gosh, no more sweets. Oh, this sucks. But then I don't have the sweet. And then after, I don't have the sweet. And then I look back and I say, oh, that's not that bad. You know, it was all in my head. This idea of wanting the sweet and the idea of the pleasure that the sweet gives is all in my head. Okay, then I don't have it the second day and the third day and the fourth day. And I'm doing very well, by the way. And then after a while, the craving for the sweet or the allure, more than craving, it's the allure, right? Because it has no essence. It has no essence. The essence and the kind of allure is all mind made. It's made up in my heart, made up in my mind. And so I say, no big deal, right? I've let go of it. And the joy that comes out of that. Great. So now, on a special event like this, on a special occasion, I make sure I take a small piece of sweet very mindfully, and then I really enjoy it. So, the joy of letting go, chaga sukha or parichaga sukha. So, as we live life in this way, kind of being guided by these principles, then automatically there is joy that rises up. As these kinds of joy rise up within us, it automatically leads to a collectedness of heart, collectedness of mind, right? Then, when we are, even if we don't realize that we are happy, there's something that feels right. There's a kind of balance, there's a kind of patience, there's a kind of, a relaxation, an ease. And that leads to collectedness. So when we sit down on the cushion and we start meditating and we slowly start recollecting, this is what I did well today. This I could have done better, but still not bad. This I need work on. And we start recollecting these things, and immediately the mind collects, right? It's not as scattered as it used to be. And that's the power of sati, this power of recollection, this power of, sati and anusati. These go hand in hand. And one of the most important anusatis is chaga anusati. Chaga is letting go, anusati is remembering that letting go. So, how many times did we let go today? At the end of the day, can we recall that? Can we recollect that? And then what does it do to the heart? What does it do to silence? What does it do to awareness? What does it do to this mind that habitually throws tantrums? What does it do to the mind that's habitually complaining, saying, oh, you're not good enough? But if we are actually recollecting, now this is not a mental thing, this is calling back into memory something that we have done. And as I started the Dhamma talk, I said, Atta Samma Panidi Che Etang Mangala Muttama. It's one of the lines in the Mangala Sutta, and it's really, really a very special line. It says, paying equal attention or being equally dedicated to the eight is the highest blessing. What are the eight? It's the Noble Eightfold Path. So, all the way from right speech to right view, everything in between, all the eight. An equal commitment, an equal dedication. So we're not favoring one over the other. We're not saying, Sila, I have to focus only on Sila, or we're not saying, oh, I want to focus only on Samadhi. Panya is not important, Sila is not important. Or I'm not saying, no, I do only Vipassana, so I'll focus only on Panya. So Sila is not important and Samadhi is not important. How can we actually say that when all these three feed each other, they help each other, each one leans on the other two, like this tripod holding the camera. If you remove one of the legs, it gets wobbly and the camera will fall. So if we give too much emphasis, too much importance on one aspect, and you see that happening many times. No, I want to get jhana, I want to get samadhi. Oh yeah, but how's your sila? Oh yeah, it's all right. I'm being very mindful. I am doing mindfulness based stress reduction. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. How's your sila? It's okay. Like, you know, it's by the by, right? Okay, it can work, it can still work, but you're not getting the full potential out of it. I'm not saying it's not going to work. And I'm not saying that all of us must be kind of militantly devoted to Sila. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying is that if you want the Noble Eightfold Path to work, all these three must be given equal importance. And if you want it to work in its optimal capacity, all these three have to be given equal importance. Right? And then with Sila comes all of these sukhas that leads to Samadhi. And when there is a silence, a deep silence in the heart, we are able to touch the stillness, we are able to be choicelessly aware, then insights come up automatically. We don't have to look for them. We don't have to go searching for them. And this is how samadhi feeds panya, right? And then panya, when insight comes up, when we know that this is skillful and this is unskillful, then obviously we are rooted back into sila. So it keeps feeding itself. Sila feeds samadhi, samadhi feeds panya, panya feeds sila. They can't exist without the other. And to actually kind of reach, not even reach, but to embrace or to make this really part of who we are and what we do, um, is the key. That's where the work is. So the work is not in achieving samadhi, but the work is, or achieving panya, or achieving sila. No. The work is in all these other areas that surround it. Yeah. So if there's a farmer and he wants to grow the best apples in the world, he's not going to take that apple and do work with it in a laboratory. Maybe a little bit of that helps, but his primary work goes into ensuring that the soil is right, that these orchards get the adequate sunlight, it gets adequate moisture, it gets adequate rain, it's shaded when it's needed, it's not when it's not needed, and then all the bugs are kept away. There's so much that needs to be done. Having done all this, he gets a good apple. right? So that's why the Buddha always said Magga and Phala. Magga is the path. That's where all the work needs to happen. We have no control over the Phala. We have no control over the fruit. If our work along with the path goes on fine, then the fruit will automatically be fine. But somehow this kind of the way we've been brought up, the way we've been educated, the way we work, we're always focused on the fruit. Then we try and work backwards, right? So we say, okay, I want jhana, I want samadhi, in order to, or I want this really deep insight, this highest level of vipassana. And in order to get that, what do I have to do? I reverse engineer the process, right? But begin at the beginning and then start moving ahead and then see what happens. And um, in this kind of pursuit, there are so many other questions that come up. What do I need to do? I want to become a sotapanna or want to become a stream enterer. What do I do? But it's not so much the question of doing, it's what we don't do that's equally important. It's what we don't engage with that's equally important. And, you know, you have to focus on certain things and you have to let go of certain things. So it can't be everything that we do all the time. It's also about what we don't do, what we give up. Um, but then it's interesting. Everyone is so enamored by the idea of stream entry that some of the most basic supports of stream entry, no one pays, I mean, not much attention is paid to it. No one even talks about them. So there are two suttas which are very, very interesting. In one sutta, Ananda goes to Sariputta and asks Venerable Sariputta, oh, Venerable Sir, all these people are talking about stream entry and stream entry factors, Sotapatyanga. What are these factors of stream entry? So then Sariputta says, well, factors of stream entry is an experiential understanding of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And he emphasizes that an experiential understanding of the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, and the Sila that's kept by the noble ones. That's it. Only four things. Sila that's kept by the noble ones, we all know. It's the five precepts and the eight precepts, right? And the commitment to them and the um, wise kind of attachment to them. That's on one side. On the other side is this experiential understanding of the Buddha and the Dhamma and the Sangha. And as we discussed this morning, what is it? It's an experiential understanding of an awakened, alert mind which is free of greed, hatred, and delusion from moment to moment. That's all it is. That's a deep experiential understanding, and we all have that potential. That's a deep experiential understanding of the Buddha. Each moment as it presents itself, when we choicelessly observe, we don't try and mold it, we don't try and sculpt it. That is an experiential understanding of the Dhamma. Coming together like this, supporting each other in our practice, allowing that the awakened mind to take in the reality of this present moment. That's realistic understanding or experiential understanding of Sangha. On the on the other hand, Sariputta then goes to the Buddha and the Buddha asks him, Sariputta, all these people, all these guys, probably it was a fad in the Sangha at that time, right? As we see it happening. Like all of a sudden, everyone's talking about something, and then 2 months later, the flavor of practice changes, and everyone's talking about something else. So the Buddha says, "Oh, Sariputta, all these people are talking about Sotapati Anga, Sotapati Anga. What is this Sotapati Anga?" And Sariputta tells the Buddha, "Well, the first one is Sapurisa Sangseva. So you meet someone who's worthy of respect, and this person really appeals to you, and this person comes across to you as someone who has integrity, someone who's concerned for your well being, someone who'll never do anything to hurt you or harm you, right? And then what do you do? And that person is the Sappurisa, Samseva. Then what do we do with that person? We go and engage with them, we serve them, right? We cultivate a rapport with them. This is very, very important. The Sappurisa Sangseva. Because, and I know for good reason, there's a lot of shying away from guru worship and all of that, especially in the West. I'm not talking of guru worship. I'm talking about finding a person with integrity, deep, deep integrity. And if we are lucky to come across someone like that in our lives, how do we engage with them? How do we serve them? How do we build a rapport with them? Because then what will happen? If we do Sapurisa Sangseva and we are able to build that rapport, then that person will actually take the trouble of imparting some of their wisdom to us. Then that leads us to the second stage, which is Saddhamma Savanam, which is listening to the Dhamma, right? So you go to someone who's worthy of your respect, who's looking out for your well-being and for your welfare, someone who has really strong integrity, you can depend on them, and then you listen to what they have to say. And they will, because if you have a relationship with someone like that, they are going to impart something that's really worthy of listening to. Fine, you listen, and then what do? Then you practice yoniso manasikara. What is yoniso manasikara? Manasikara is to keep listening to what they say and keep reviewing it over and over and over again and bring it to its total irreducible essence. Leave away all the fluff, let go of what is not important, come to the core of the message. Yoniso manasikara, internalize it, let it become second nature to you. So you build up a rapport, you listen to what they have to say, you keep considering it over and over and over again, almost like revising a textbook, till it sits in your heart, till it sits in there, till you're kind of soaked in it, till we are immersed in it. Yoniso manasikara, coming back to its origin, bringing it down, reducing it to its essence that it can't be reduced any further. And then finally, after Yoniso Manasikara, then you put that into practice. Dhammanudhamma Patipati, right? So you've heard, you have kind of evaluated it, you've reduced it to what's really useful to you, you've taken it in, and then you start applying it. Dhammanudhamma Patipati, bringing it into action. So, not just allowing it to remain in. So, when Sariputta enumerates this to the Buddha, saying, if all these four things are done, this is how people enter the stream, Buddha's really pleased with him. He says, well done, Sariputta, you got it. Got it in one. Then he says, now what is this stream that people keep talking about? There's nothing, oh Lord, it's nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. Very simple. No need to complicate anything. Sila, Samadhi, Panya, that's the path. You find someone who's adept at this, listen to what they have to say, personalize that, take it in, and apply it in day to day life. Very, very simple, really simple, not complicated at all. And then what happens is this leads to all of these things, piti, pasadi, and all of these things that are spoken about in the canon. It leads to a sense of joy. It leads to a sense of a feeling of satiety, a feeling of contentment. This gives birth to confidence. Hey, I'm doing something right. Something's beginning to work. These are the things, these are the changes that I can see, right? Then you become happy. Then you can meditate. Oh, we can meditate. Okay, so I guess it's 1:20 now. I leave it open for questions and answers. If there's any questions?
Just a
Yes.
clarification. The third, so when you said Sabhvapasakaranam. So the third one, what is the
Kusala Saupasampada,
Sampada?
Sachitta Paryodapana.
So something like do the wholesome. And third one is it mind like you control? No,
No, Sachitta Paryodapana, the purification of the chitta. And the purification of the chitta becomes automatic because when you're not engaging with the unwholesome and the unskillful, and you're continuously striving and endeavoring to associate only with the skillful and the wholesome, then automatically there's a purity that comes into the chitta. Yeah. Yes, Shan.
About Sachitta Pariyodapana, how does it relate to the Dasa Kusala and the Dasa Kusala?
Well, it relates to the root of all things. Um, if the chitta is pure, then intention is pure. And intention is the beginning of everything. The Buddha himself says that first verse in the Dhammapada, Mano Pubbangama Dhamma, Mano Setha Manomaya. The mind is the leader, mind is preeminent, mind is the Lord. Everything is mind made, right? So if you do something with a mind that is pleasant, the results will be pleasant. If you do something with the mind having a tone of unpleasantness, the results will be unpleasant. So it's the mind, it is the intention that is foremost. And if the root is wholesome and pleasant, the fruit will be wholesome and pleasant. Many years ago, I watched this. I enjoyed this movie called The Iron Lady. This movie on Margaret Thatcher's life, and in that, she actually has a lovely saying, and she said that her dad used to say this all the time. And the saying goes, "Watch your words, for they become no. Watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits. Watch your habits, for they become your character. Watch your character, because your character becomes your destiny. And what you think is what you become." So, if we're thinking wholesome, we're thinking skillful, we're thinking good, we become skillful. We become wholesome. We become good. Okay. So it's 1:23. Let's take a short break, and then from 1:30 to 2:30, again, walking and sitting. Um, Please let that be self-directed. We'll come back together at 2:30, do 15 minutes together, and then we'll do the sharing of merits and closing. Great. Thank you.